Hey everybody, in this video I want to show you guys how I make a leather belt base with chainmail attached to it. So what we have here is a belt that I've already made, and it's just maybe a 4 millimeter, 3 or 4 millimeter thick. I'm not sure about the ounces, but talk to your leather provider and they'll be able to hook you up vegetable tanned leather because it takes this embossing pattern really well. And if I remember to, there'll be a link somewhere up on the screen where you can see the tutorial where I show you how I get this embossing done on my leather. But you can do it on plain leather, you can do it on hand tooled, just whatever you like. You can even do this with some of the thicker and heavier like upholstery and garment leathers if you want something a little more supple, but I kind of like the rigidity to this. So I have it cut out, whatever style of belt that you want, at whatever length that you want, and I have it embossed, and I beveled the edges, which again, if I remember, there'll be a link up on the screen where I show you how to bevel edges. And I'm going to be using an EcoFlow antique gel in tan color. I get this from tandyleather.com. Well, I go to their store, but you can get it online too. And gloves are highly recommended because I have pretty thick calluses on my hands from instruments and gardening and wire wrapping and all this stuff that we do, and this will deeply stain all of those calluses, so it makes it look like I have a really bad case of like poopy hands. So gloves are good. Also, you will want some paper towels. I'm just going to tear off a couple here to the side. And this is a pretty basic leather technique that I use on almost all of my leather. Like, I love the antique gels because it's quick, it's inexpensive, and it's very effective. Hey Randy, do you know where my squirt bottle is with Tamama on it? Ah, thank you. Is that my one a day? You'll also want a squirt bottle of water, and I have my nice little Tamama just because I like him. Anyways, so we're going to take our EcoFlow and we're going to shake it up because you want all of those pigments nice and evenly distributed throughout. And I'm just going to glob some here into my hand. And you'll notice on my work surface, this is a piece of freezer paper and it has the waxy side up, but it's just globbed into my hand like that. And then I just start laying it on the leather. And with the antique gel, you really want to let it settle down into all of the little nooks and crannies of the detailing that you've put in on it. Because that's really how it shines through the best. Kind of stretch it as far as I can, and that's why I really like using my glove for this, is because if I were using a sponge, so much of the pigment here would be soaked up into the sponge, whereas with it just my bare hand, or just my gloved hand, it's like using a squeegee almost to just evenly. And you can see here too the difference between well antiqued and I need to use a little bit more because there's some really, like, it didn't get down into all the crevices. Now also, because of its thick nature, whenever it's a little if you're skimping a little bit, it does get really good for blocking, which blocking is a technique where you would just take it and slide over it, and see how it darkens down all of the parts that stick up. I mean, very minimally. I'm doing this with almost no pigment on my hand. But, I don't know, just options. It's an art, not a science, so there's no real wrong way to do it. Just experiment, and if you find something that you like and you're able to become consistent with it, then there you go. And I'm also trying to make sure to get my edges as I go, because you don't want to miss any spots. I also really like the EcoFlow antique gels because there's not much of a smell to them. And so whenever I'm working on a piece, and I mean, today's a beautiful day, so I have like the windows open and stuff, so I do apologize about the traffic noises. But if I'm working and it's like really hot or really cold, so we have the heater or the air conditioning on and I don't have the windows open, if I'm using like the Fibeams or Febeams oil-based dyes, oh my gosh, they stink the house up. But I mean, really intense colors there too. Oops. Okay, so now I'm just flipping it over because I want to get the back side as well. And I do enjoy using antique gel on untooled leathers as well because it will kind of settle into the natural, like, my work surface is getting all messy. It'll settle into the wrinkling and texture that's just naturally there from the leather, and that looks pretty cool. Now, I do only recommend this for vegetable tanned leathers. I don't know what effect it would have on, like, say, a chrome tanned. I don't know. Experiment with some scrap leather first. Again, I'll never say, oh, well, you can't do that, because it's like, I don't know, you might have completely different results than I do. But I would definitely recommend testing it first. And that's the voice of experience right there. It's too early in the day for the serial killer mailman to be here. What possibly could be going on? Okay, so now that I have everything pretty well covered in antique gel, I'm going to wipe the excess off my hands so I stop leaving dirty little fingerprints everywhere. But yeah, so that's all that got wasted, you guys. That was it. As opposed to if you do this and you use like a sponge, you'll be rinsing the sponge out like over and over again, and it seems like you endlessly cannot get the pigment out of the sponge. So again, just more of my perspective. I like to give you guys the reasoning behind why I do things. That way you can decide for yourself like whether or not that's something that makes sense for what you're doing. So I'll fix my necklace. And so I've just squirted a few times here on some paper towel, and I'm going to start kind of rubbing and buffing off the extra. Because if you don't do this, especially on the inside, all of this extra pigment will rub off onto your skin or clothing. So go ahead and take this step and just clean off the excess. You can see that's really lightening it up a couple of shades. Opening up my paper towel, getting a kind of clean side. Clean-ish. Flipping it around. Gonna use the other side. Now, also, it's called EcoFlow because it's not like, it's not as bad for the environment. I'm not going to say that it's like good for the environment, but, you know, it's better than, at least it doesn't have a biohazard, you know, special chemical use license required label on it. But I do actually compost my paper towels that have, I do compost, sorry, Randy's bringing me over completed projects, and I'm like, I don't have anywhere to put it. I do compost my paper towels that have this on there, but I use it for my flower beds, not my food beds, just in case there's something in there that complicates, like gets soaked up by, you know, my lettuces or something. So I'm going to flip this over now, and I'm going to get a fresh paper towel. Set that right now. Boop, boop, boop. Kind of fold it up a bit, get it nice and wet, and now you can really see it shine through that nice contrast and detail. I'm gonna see if this won't zoom in just a bit. Yeah, so now you can really see that nice contrast and detail that the antique gel really, I mean, it just brings to life all the tooling and texturing and stuff. just like that. And I try to not get my paper towels sopping wet, but, you know, experiment, find what works for you. Sorry, I'm still experimenting with the camera and trying to figure out, like, where the best way to kind of keep my hands and everything. This seems like it's working out pretty well. I'm a major case of learn on the run. Like, I learn by doing, and that isn't always good whenever it's like, oh, camera skills, learn by doing. It means y'all are really going to get to experience this learning curve firsthand with me. Oh, the tan is probably one of my favorite antique gels because it gets the really nice deep chestnutty colors as well. Looks good with my complexion. And really shows off, like, the dark tones on it are really nice and, like, dark. Something that I recommend for, like, I have it for whenever we're doing custom work for people in the booth. If they don't know what color that they want, I made a color swatch. Like, it's almost like fabric samples that you would see for, like, an interior designer, where it has samples of leather, all cut from the same piece of leather, so they dye as close to true to each other, like, relative to each other as possible. And, well, I guess it's right over here. I can show you. Now, this is my smaller one that I keep at home. I have another one in our show stuff. But you can see it has the different colors stained onto it. And I wrote with a pen in on top of it what each of those colors were. And so that way you could actually go through and texture a piece and then do different colors of antique over parts of it. That way you can really see how each antique gel has its own contrast and all kinds of stuff like that. Just for your own reference, or for if you have clients, it's just, that's something I wish I had thought of or heard about much earlier in my leatherworking career, because it's really helpful. Hush, puppies, it's just the neighbors. Our neighbors are so kind and patient with us with our working dogs. Okay. Now also, that's pretty close. Okay. You want to make sure, since I have a center point on this belt, I wanted to make sure that the ends were pretty well even, and they are. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of set some of that stuff aside. Before I punch any holes, because we will need to be punching holes, I'm going to show you guys one of my new favorite products, and that is Aussie Wax. Also, I just saw I missed a little spot right there. I'm going to zoom this back out because I'm just all over the place. I missed a little spot right here, so I'm going to see if I can't. Yeah, usually there's enough gunked up on the edges that you can just slick it down and it'll blend, fill in its own gaps and spaces and things. There we go. Okay. Set that over there. Take our gloves off. And now with the Aussie Wax, I'm actually going to start on the back side first. That way the front has a little further of an opportunity to dry. This is a big old thing of it that I got at Tandy Leather for like, oh, I don't know, like maybe $12 or something. Oh, it feels so good. It's a nice, like, goopy ointment, kind of, for your leather. And you just kind of lay it down and rub it in. In older episodes, videos that I've done, I've used beeswax with olive oil. Now this stuff, the the ingredients says Aussie leather conditioner with beeswax. Says it may darken some light colored leather, contains natural beeswax, perfect for use on saddles, tack, boots, gun cases, and handbags. It conditions, strengthens, and waterproofs smooth leather in one quick step. So it says smooth leather, but I used it pretty successfully on some tooled leather at a class I was teaching at Tandy Leather. So I got I got to use the product hands-on first before being like, oh yeah, I want some of this. So I'm putting on a thin layer, and it smells really nice. Like, I wouldn't eat it, but it smells really nice. And then I'm just kind of buffing it in with a paper towel. You can see it's still taking some of that pigment off. That's fine, that's why we do this. And this buffing action actually will help seal the pores of the leather. And so you can just kind of dip some in. I like it on my hands because it makes it really, really soft. But have y'all tried Aussie Wax? Have you had, like, what are your experiences with it? Or if you have or haven't, what product do you use that you would recommend? Because I'm always interested. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do leatherworking, so I'm always interested in how somebody else does it, because there's no telling what we might learn from each other. So I just realized that this shakes the camera. Sorry. Okay. Oh, y'all can't feel, well, if you're working on your own project, you'll be able to feel, but this feels so nice. Okay, and now from here, I'm gonna get just a bit, and the reason it says smooth leather is because it really does kind of settle down into all those crevices a little too much for what some people would prefer, but all it takes is some extra elbow grease. Elbow grease. That works great on leather. Sorry, I think I'm funny, so I'll just sit here and laugh at my own jokes for a minute. But no, it just takes a little bit of extra elbow grease to rub and buff it out, because that heat actually melts the beeswax and oil blend that's going on here and helps it penetrate into the leather even more. And I do think it's really important to take this step to seal and condition your leather, instead of just like selling it kind of raw, like unfinished. Because this is, I don't know, it's just upping the quality by another 10 points, sort of. Definitely the durability. And even if nobody else other than you realizes that you're doing it, it's going to give you that confidence whenever you're selling your product to be like, no, I know I put in a lot of work and effort on this. It's worth what it's worth. You know, whereas, I don't know, I guess if you don't do it and somebody's like, oh, well, did you do this stuff? You're going to be like, you know. So I'm going to do this on the other side. Excuse me. Thank you. And also, I would definitely recommend adding a little bit first and then kind of going from there. Just because you can always add more. I don't really think it works trying to take some off. But yeah, it's doing a great job of leaving that antique gel kind of intact. Because I don't want to be like rubbing it and have it, you know, removing the antique gel from the project. So yeah, check that out. That kind of sheen that it gives is so nice. So nice, and that's going to help repel moisture. So if you're wearing this, like this is a belly dance belt that I'm making, so by wearing it, this inside layer is going to help repel the sweat and everything. Oh my gosh, you guys, it smells so good. I love the smell of leather. Like, we have our van is a 2001 uh minivan, and it does, I think, technically have leather seats, but it doesn't have that like new car nice leather smell. So whenever we get orders from Tandy Leather, like, and we're bringing it home, we'll leave it in the van overnight, and it makes the whole van smell like leather, and we're just like, luxury. So now the next step, because you'll notice I haven't gone through and wiped the excess off of the sides yet. I think my edge slicker is in here. Yeah. Found it. Okay, so we have, this is the piece of blue jean that I usually use to buff pieces, and it's just, if you're doing something that's like a very big project, it can start to eat through the paper towels a little bit. So I like using the blue jean because you can see too, it absorbed a little bit more, and so it's more of a matte finish and less of a sheen. Just kind of wiping it down one more time just to get the excess off. Okay, now this is an edge slicker, and it has multiple sizes of grooves as well as a really nice rounded end and a really like nice end here. And what we do is I'm just going to turn my project on its side and go like this. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to take an opportunity to angle this camera down just a hair. Again, always experimenting with different camera angles because I want you guys to be able to see everything that I'm doing from as many different angles as possible. So I'm just coming through and kind of slicking the edges. And you can't see as much as you can feel how nice and sealed this part of the leather is. And so again, it's another step that's pretty time consuming, but makes such a difference, and you don't really have to go back and do it again, you know. So once it's done, it's done. And I feel like if you're going to do it as right as you can to the best of your knowledge, or as thoroughly. So still just coming through. Okay, so there we are. Now this is ready to be beltified, like turned into a belt. I'm going to set my excess tools and materials off here to the side. And now also we will need a cutting board, a punch, a hammer, and a very handy tool called a wing divider. And so now you can see here, if I can bring old Bertha forward. And please pardon all of the dog hair that's on her. But you'll be able to see here. The way that I have these spaced on to attach the chainmail to the leather base, I used a wing divider, and this spacing worked really well for me. It's just a little over 1/2 inch, and I'm using 16 gauge 3/16 rings. So there we go. So I've got my wing divider set. And then also you can see here on the back where I have this point. Well, chainmail makes a straight across line like this. So you can see, you know, how that top edge is there. Well, actually, I guess I'll just take it off the mannequin. That'll make a lot more sense. So yeah, the chainmail is detached. So it just goes straight across the back like that. But it let me keep that nice tapered line without the chainmail getting all kind of like saggy and weird. And it also let me attach a free moving, I don't know, I feel like it adds a little bit more movement to the piece. Like as a belly dance belt, this has a really nice jingle to it. And so that's how I attached it, and so that's how I'm going to be attaching my work to this next piece. And then I just have them tie with ribbon out of the booth. Whenever I'm making something custom for somebody, I usually add in like buckles or something, but I wanted this one to be able to fit a variety of sizes. So, and I just think that looks so nice. Like the as a lady who is full figured but also very apple framed, I like something that gives an emphasis of the waistline, and so this nice kind of curve of the belt sits on the hips very nicely, and then also this point coming down really shows off the curve of the bum really nicely, as well as, you know, just the lines. It gives a really nice full figured hip, and so those were some design elements that I wanted to incorporate. That way, there we go, centered back up on the work surface. Just to talk to y'all a bit about, you know, because some folks, they prefer the way a straight line across looks on their hips, but I've found that almost universally this is very flattering on a lot of different figures. Okay, so let me pull out the chainmail. Now here I have a bunch of equilateral triangles woven in a European foreign one. If I remember to, there'll be links up on the screen. Yeah, there'll be links up on the screen to show how I wove these. And let me actually, sorry. Again, experimenting with more camera angles, because I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, I think this will work out pretty well. So this one here, and I call these pennants just because they're like a flag that kind of hangs down all medieval style. It's gonna be hanging down, like centered up here, and on this belt behind me I had a very large one and then two smaller pennants. These ones are all the same size, just because it gives a very different effect to have different sized triangles coming off. So I'm going to have one centered, but you can see there's a difference in how you have it extended. Like if you have it loose, like we can pull it tight across the shoulders here and it's nice and wide, or you can pull it down by the tip and it looks a little bit more like that. I'm going to be attaching it more to the dimensions of this than this, just because that's what I'm doing, but I wanted to show you that there is a difference there, and it's up to you entirely which one you decide to do. And so to do that, I'm just going to pull it by the shoulders nice and wide, set that off to the side, and come in here. And you can count if you want. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So right here is our center point. So we'll come down from there and line it up to where it's going to be hitting here and here. So I'm going to mark 2 points on each side, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to see if I can't. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. So you can see a little better what I'm doing, maybe. And then I'm going to take this away. Oops. And I have my cutting board now. And you can see the 2 little dots that I marked. And I line up the edge of my hole punch with the hole. That way, because I'm not punching too close to the edge. Ah, that's horribly loud. Okay, let me grab. This is why a nice heavy work surface really comes in handy. This is just a lightweight drafting table. So it doesn't really take the hammering on it as well as the heavy wooden sewing desk behind me does. So that's where a giant marble granite slab comes in really handy. So you saw what it was like without it, and now we're lining it up for another hit. Huge difference. Huge difference. Okay, and I'm finding where my holes are, lining up, and just punching, like, I mean, all the difference in the world. Oops. There we go. So now we have those 2, and I am going to want to do a layer, because just like how I did on this piece here, how you can kind of see there's this top edge of jingly bits. There we go. How there's this top edge of jingly bits here. To do that here on this one, I want to do a hole there, and I'm going to set this just a little wider to about 1 inch. There's 1, 2. And since this is a smaller triangle, I'm only going to do a total of 5 holes. So you can still kind of see what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, that makes such a difference, having this marble granite block. Okay, so now you can see how those holes are positioned. This is actually kind of helping me with my framing too, so I'm just going to leave the block up here. But it's all covered in oxblood dye, so I'm actually going to try to clean it off real quick. Because that's another thing about those oil stains, is they, I mean, stain everything. And I had probably the leakiest bottle I had ever encountered, and it made a bloody mess everywhere. It was a disaster. And now my stone is pink. They sad. Okay. So now we have our leather, we have our chainmail, and I'm using, like I said, 16 gauge 5/16, which there's links down in the video description of where I sell these rings. You can also, if you want an anodized aluminum or a stainless steel or anything like that, you can go to theringlord.com. They have very good products. Like any rings that I don't make myself, I get from them. And I have my pliers. You'll need pliers for chainmail. And I'm going to start by just hooking, I'm going to turn this sideways maybe, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more So hopefully y'all can see what I'm doing. Beep. Ah, good enough. Okay. So these 2 rings here that I have on the edge, I'm going to thread through just like I'm extending the weave, like that. And then I'm coming up behind the leather and just threading through the hole that we have punched so that it sits like that. And I'm closing it. And now I'm going to come through again. How's this sitting? Okay. Hooking through these 2 rings, the next 2. So it's not the same as doing the weave, it's a little different. But again, this is just what I'm doing. You can try a bunch of different ways for attaching. And then closing it. And then we can bring this back over to the other side. I'm grabbing a ring. And I'm actually going to start by threading through the leather first, just like that. And coming 2 rings in and getting the next 2, just like that. I've done projects before where I've hand sewn the chainmail to the hem of something. There goes that one. I'm going to thread through the leather. And then 1, 2, just like that. And let's see how this is sitting before I decide whether or not we're going to do any more holes. It's a bit floppy for what I'd like. Like a bit really floppy, actually. Like I want it a little tighter across the back. Like, see how it's just hanging? That's going to make this happen a whole lot, where it gets on the wrong side of my dangly bits. And I don't want that to happen. So let's see if I can't maybe punch 2 more holes. And again, this comes into an extreme case of way more art than science. So long as you make it kind of look like, yeah, that's totally what I meant to do, then you'll be fine. I'm coming about 1/4 inch away from off the side, so not totally equidistant. I guess let's try to make it equidistant. That'll make it look less like an afterthought and more like something that was planned. Ish. So 3rd one off that way, and a 3rd hole off that way. Now we're going to punch it. Also, a lot of folks ask me what tools I would recommend. I highly recommend a set of punches as opposed to a rotary punch, because a rotary punch is like, it's like coming in with a pair of pliers, but it has a hole punch like there at the tip. And the problem with it is you can only reach so far in, which is fine for like straps like this, but if you're doing like a corset or some armor where you really need to be like, you're punching a rivet 3 inches in from any given edge, one of these is perfect. Okay, so coming in again with another. This was clean when I started, and it's just a disaster already. I'm making messes every day. So hooking through those same 2 first rings, bringing it over. So through these 2 rings right here. Just hooking through and threading through the leather. How's that look? So that definitely makes it much tighter. So you can see there, it's still flopping around a bit, but And so now something that we can do from here, because I don't like how that's bunched up, is I'm going to open these 2 rings and line them up properly. And this is something that making it up as you're going is such a vital part of the creative process, I feel like, because it's you might be using different ring sizes than what I am, or you have it spaced differently, or you like the way it looks a different way. Being able to kind of make up on the fly what you're going to do can help you from getting stumped, and it can help you to just complete a project, which sometimes that's the hardest part. And I'm not gonna lie, I have about like 17 different projects going at any given time, which having Randy over there kind of halfway finishing some for me. Like, I did the leather bases for a bunch of belts, and he's doing the little scale strips that we're going to be adding to them. That helps tremendously. So I've opened up all these rings.
I cut out all those belts too.
You did cut out all the belts. Thank you for. He's over there and he's like, don't undersell. He's like, he does a lot of work. He's like, excuse me, I cut those belts out. So yeah, I basically just dyed them and assembled them. So he helps so much. So yeah, just rethreading back through the 2. And trying my best to get a good clean closure. Somebody might be wearing this over a lacy hip scarf, or like a very light cotton skirt, or like a crocheted belt, or I mean just like infinite possibilities, and I really don't want to have to worry about my chainmail getting tangled in what they're doing. So nice good closures are always a good idea. So yeah, the difference here you can see between having the rings spaced out nicely, 1, 2, 3, and having the rings kind of jumbled up a little. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to go back through and just tidy it up some. Now this is really making it quite tight, so like a little too tight, I think. So I'm just going to have this one threaded through 1 ring. I'm going to have this one threaded through 1 ring. Yeah, because see how it's puckering funny now? I want to keep that from happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to take it back off. So again, tweaking from both sides, but what are we going to do? Ah, that relaxed it so much. Honk, honk. Sorry, we live near the railroad tracks, so like they cut right through the center of town, it seems. It really makes, we live in an old Victorian house, and so it really makes it seem authentic. You know, authentic Victorian times, like if we wanted to LARP it up a little bit. Like, our house still has all the old gas fixtures in the walls for having gas lamps. Which is annoying because I hit my head on them, but it's just because I shouldn't be like trying to do handstands next to that wall anyways. So we're getting this ring attached to the leather. There we go. And the puckering is much less now. Like, we want it to be able to lay nice and flat. And so don't hesitate to kind of tweak and fiddle however you feel necessary to get it to be the way that you want it to be. And now I'm going to go through and do the sides. We have another bit here. So I'm wondering if I can fit 2 more on, or if I'm only going to be able to fit. It's going to be a really tight fit, actually. If they weren't all the same size, I could maybe fit some more on. So what I'm going to do is I want to space it out a little more equidistantly. So I have this here, and I want it at about 1.5 inches. No, let's see. On the larger belt, this is how far apart the just dangly bits hang, and then it's about this far apart in between the holes that I have for the rings for attaching the pennants. So I'm going to do a light mark and then a deep mark to determine where the holes are going to go. And I'm going to do 3 holes for just dangly bits, and then we'll go into doing the diamond for the triangles. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to leave that at 8 because I haven't counted and I'm not for certain how many rings wide this is and what it's going to take. So there's 1, and skip 1 and 2, and skip 1 and 3, and now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sure. Okay, where'd my hole punch go? There it is. Okay. There's my hammer. Okay, and now I'm going to find the last hole that I did. Just line it up like that. And start punching them out. I'm going to skip a spot and 1, and skip a spot and 2. Well, I guess I should have given myself, instead of doing a hole right there. That'll be fine, I think. I'll just do it the same on the other side. Skip 1 and hole. Skip 1 and hole. Okay, and then there we go. So that's 1. So on this side, I am going to skip that little spot right there and move over, because then 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. There. So yeah, for this one, I'm just going to skip that little hole right there, which gives whoever buys it a little option to, if they want to add something right there, they totally can. So also, I lied. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show y'all how to set some rivets. I'm going to go through and add some little dots in between all these. So there's 1, 2, 3. Again, full on faking it till I make it, guys. I'm just kind of like, I accidentally punched a hole there. What can I do to fill it? Rivet. Oh, but it'll look weird just having one of them. Do rivets between all of them. So don't ever feel bad if you mess up or if you feel like you've made a mistake. Just try to think of ways to recover from it, and there's no telling what kind of your creative evolution might take. on that piece and might end up doing something that you would have never thought to do. So, okay, so now it's a pretty consistent, just evenly spaced holes. And I'm going to dig out the stuff to show you all how to set some rivets. Oh, I found more chainmail. It's an eyelet setter. Where's my rivet? Rivet setter, where'd you go? There you are. Okay, this is a rivet setter. It has a domed end and a flat end. You hit the flat end, you put the domed end over the rivet. Just let me dig out some rivets. Now, since I'm not attaching anything, and this is more purely decorative than anything, I'm going to just use the smallest rivet that I can get away with. These look pretty nice. Okay, so here I have a little canister of some extra small rivets from Tandy Leather, and these are in a nickel silver finish. And I like using the cap of the little vial to keep them from just running everywhere. I'm going to take a sprinkling out. I'm going to remove my cutting board because you want a nice hard surface. And I'm going to feed, there's this little, the male part that kind of just feeds through. So the back, and then the cap for the female end, which has a nice little receiving end in it. And you just kind of put that down over. Somewhere I have a smaller rivet setter that's preferable for these, but this is what I have on hand. And you just hammer it down just like that. And it adds a nice little doop, little rivet. And then I'm going to skip a hole and feed it through and place the cap. And then I'm going to skip a hole, place a rivet, put on the cap, just like that. No, one more. Okay. So that'll be one dangle, two dangle, three dangles, and then it, boop, right there. So it's a perfect way to try to fill in the boo-boos. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Switch one. Skip 1, 2. Place the cap. Skip 1. 3. Place the cap. Last one, skip 1. Put it through. And there's a cap. And place the cap. Now I'm going to put the rest of them away, put the lid securely on so I don't make any messes. So yeah, that has a really nice boop, boop, boop effect. And so over here is where I'll start attaching the chainmail. So I have my pliers, and I have my chainmail. And what I'm going to do is, the other rings are just kind of sitting there like that. I'm going to thread through 2 of them, just like that. And then I'm going to thread up through the leather. Get as good of a closure as I can. And then I'm going to go through the next 2 rings, boop, boop, just like that, and then feed up through the leather. And the more you do it, the more you'll kind of get the hang of it. Boop, boop, through 2. Try to find the hole. There we go. And close it. Through 2. And through 2. And through 2. And I really enjoy using leather belt bases for belly dance belts and costume pieces like this, because it's less work, I feel like, or at least the diversity of work makes the whole piece feel less like, oh my god, that was so much chainmail. And then also, leather has a really nice way of like gripping onto your skin, so you don't have to tie the belt on as tight to keep the heavy, you know, metal jingly bits from like falling down, which as a performer leads to less adjustment of your costume. And also, oh, I ran out of holes. Also to if you have any extra flesh, like even like a size 2, you can put them in a belt that's tied on too tight and it gives them a little bit of a muffin top. Whereas if you have something that's fitted and sits properly, it gives a nice smooth contour line as opposed to like biting in. So again, just design features that I try to keep in mind. So let's see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's an uneven number of rings here. So I'm going to do 4 more holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I also prefer to punch my holes after staining, because this way I don't have to worry about all sorts of dye, like the antique gel, getting gunked up inside these holes. And it's really, you almost can't even tell that they don't have dye on the inside, especially after you fill it with a ring anyways. Personal preference, but I've just learned that I prefer to do it this way. Now, an exclusion is if I'm doing like a belt that has like a buckle on it, and then the larger holes that the tongue of the belt buckle would be going through, I go through and I do those after the fact, but then go through with a Q-tip and deposit some stain down in there. Okay. So we have 7, and then I'm gonna do a hole for a rivet, a hole for a dangle, a hole for a rivet, a hole for a dangle, and a hole for a rivet before that brings us to our end. So I'm going to go ahead.
The holes for the dangles.
Did I already say that? Don't confuse me, Randy. Like, I confuse easily. Like, seriously, did I mess up and not catch it? Okay. Randy's over there. I don't know if y'all heard him, but he was like, what about the holes for the dangles? And I was like, what about them, Randy? Oh.
I don't even know what you're doing over there.
I love you, baby. You torment me. Okay, so there we go. There's our holes. And so this takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 holes for the pennant. So I'm gonna do, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then a hole for a rivet, and a hole for a dangle, and a hole for a rivet, and a hole for a dangle, and a hole for a rivet before we get to the end. So now I'm gonna, lots of hole punching, but that's okay. So there's that. Set this to the side. Okay. So I'm going to finish weaving this side. Okay, so there's, where did I leave off? 1, 2. Hook through. That's not my. I was holding on to my hole punch like it was my pliers. And now we've got this one like extra ring just hanging off the end there. So I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna feed through 1, 2. So I've doubled up on this side, but I think that'll be okay. And if anything, I can always just open the ring back up and take that second one out. Yeah, I don't like it. It makes it look puckered. So I'm just going to hook through the one, and then through, how does that look? Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the rings for the other side. There we go. Making sure the ends are finished the same. And I don't know too, I really like the contrast in textures between leather and chainmail. I feel like it makes it a little easier to accessorize. Like, especially if you're making a piece for yourself and you know, okay, my boots are going to be this dark chestnut brown. So I want to make the belt base a dark chestnut brown as well. Or you could have a belt like this that has multiple tones of brown in it. So you could accessorize darker leather boots with a lighter leather gauntlet, you know, and make it look more cohesive. I don't know, I feel so strongly that the magic of cosplay happens in the details. Whether you're at a Ren Fair or a Comic Con or just dressing up to go to Walmart, like, the magic happens in the details. So no reason to not throw in some different elements to help tie everything together. And one more. So here we have our chainmail belt. And now comes into a very fun part. Where we can add in all sorts of different fun little dangly bits. Here I have some replica, like, oriental coins in a couple of different sizes, and some still pretty brassy toned, but mostly tones of brass. These are, oops, making a mess. Punched anodized aluminum coins that I used on this belt that makes a really nice kind of jingle noise. And these are in their 1-inch size in their brushed gold, and then I also have in a 1/2-inch size in their kind of bronzed color. And then I also have one of my favorite things to use on belts, and that is cowrie shells. And these are flat-backed cowrie shells. They've not been drilled or anything. And these ones are a little bit darker, whereas the shells that I used over on this piece were like very light in color, which just different aesthetics. So, also I'm gonna need some more rings. So I'm gonna open up some of these real quick. And I'm gonna start with the very center and kind of work out from the sides. That way everything is nice and mirror imaged. I'm going to open a ring. I want one of these aluminum scales, but I'm just going to grab a cowrie shell. That's what I was afraid of. Some of these, most of these, are not big enough to let my ring through. But, okay, so what to do from here, because they're just not quite open enough to let this size of a ring through. So I'm going to check out my next ring size down. Sorry. But these are an 18 gauge 5/16. So same inner diameter, 1 gauge down in size. And these fit through quite comfortably. I'm gonna get a nice good closure on that, and so that's how it sits, just like that. Well, can't really see. Let me. Just like that. And so now I'm going to kind of alternate. I'm going to kind of get some of these rings. But I guess I could just move the camera down. So this is going to be one style of dangle that I have. And then the next style is going to be, I was thinking about doing, if they'll fit, yes they will, one of these oriental coins over one of the vintage bronze. Though now that I'm looking at it, it might do better. Oh no, the battery died on that camera. So I'll be right back. There we go. I have made a choice and difference in design. I'm not going to use, I guess I'll click record. I'm not going to use these darker bronze coins because they don't quite give as much contrast as I would like. So I'm just picking them up. This is how I store them, just in a big organizer tray like this. But I have some brushed aluminum, kind of vintagey looking coins. And I'm going to use some of those. Close that. Put that back where it goes. And so now I'm going to take an oriental coin. Like that. Onto, and I like to use the thickest ring that I can get away with. So I've gone back to using the 16 gauge, and I'm going to come up 1, 2, 3 on the third ring up, just here on the edge, and close it. And that's how that looks. And now I'm going to use one of these 18 gauge, hook on a cowrie shell, hook on a large coin, and go 1, 2, 3, rings up. I don't even know what that noise was. I don't even know if y'all heard it, but it was creepy. Okay. And I'm going to keep using some of these little coins. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Through there. Putting on a big coin. 1, 2, 3. But yeah, so I'll just zoom out a bit since I keep going off camera. But you can attach all sorts of stuff. There are some folks who use actual coins. Like foreign currency looks so cool. You know, like I think on a lot of the belly dance pieces, but it's like you'll see it and you're like, ew, why are there Canadian pennies on your belly dance belt? And I'm like, 'cause they're pretty. So, you know. But some of them I've actually punched pennies, which it's not illegal to destroy money. It's illegal to deface money in an attempt to get it to look like another form of currency. So, because we did some research into that. But it's like we took pennies and we punched holes in them because it was less expensive to do that than it was to pay like 5 cents a coin for some like cheap little tin coins. And we were like, or we could literally use pennies. So we did. And it was a very heavy, very jingly, very hard to make belt, but the lady who purchased it really liked it. So that's the point.
It wasn't nickels, it was quarters.
Was it? Well, the cheapest I've ever been able to find was like a quarter per piece. So we figured we'll just put in the time instead of the money. Okay, 1, 2. So now from here, we're going to do dangly bits. And so we have another 16 gauge. So you can see what I'm doing. Got a little coin. Got a silver one. And I'm just hooking it right there onto the leather. And the reason I'm going through and double layering all of these, like, is because it does like a clapper bell effect and it gives a much more vigorous jingle than it would if I just did single layers of coins bumping into each other. So I don't know. I really like the aesthetic of it too. I think it's pretty. And sometimes that's, especially in costume pieces, that's the only reasoning you need for anything is, well, I like the way it looks. So do it. And I also find that different metal types have different jingle sounds. Like the aluminum's actually a little dull for what I like, which is why I mix in some steel with these little oriental coins, as well as the shell sound of the cowrie shells. It adds a nice little tinkle to it. Okay. Trying to keep this from pulling the whole piece off the table, but it looks like it's just gonna take everything with it. So, okay. So now I've come here, I'm gonna start back at the tip again. So again, just grabbing a shell. There we go. Here comes another train. 1, 2, 3. And here I'm doing an alternate repetition, like one type and another type and one type, but you could do it where every single one is something different. Just all sorts of stuff. Like, your creativity is the only limit here. Like, well, and access to materials. That can be pretty limiting. But check it out on eBay. I've actually had more success searching specifically, like, not belly dance belt materials, because a lot of the times there'll be like a huge uptick in the price on pieces like that. Whereas if you kind of, be like oriental coin charm as opposed to belly dance, just sometimes they'll get you on, that kind of marketing. But if you just find something that you do like and then try to experiment with different keyword searches, you might be able to find the same thing for less. And also, I got all of these shells off of, I was given an old, like, belt that somebody had got as, like, part of a swimsuit from, like, the 90s. And I just took it apart, and I was like, I can use those shells. So don't be afraid to use found and upcycled materials, like, all sorts of stuff. And then these punched aluminum coins I get from the Ring Lord as well. They do really good work. So again, it's pretty time consuming, but it's pretty chill too, so. And this is also something that sometimes if I'm using like scales to go along the edges and stuff, I'll have everything else on the belt made except for the scales. That way if somebody orders like a bronze scale top and then they want bronze scales on their belt, or if they get like a purple top and they want purple scales, it lets me go in and kind of add in that customized touch. Okay. Okay, so you can see here I've gone through and set up some like the units, I guess, of the jangly bits that I would be attaching, this is my favorite way of operating whenever I'm like in production mode. And it's because it's like I can just focus on like I've got my 3 piles of like rings and 2 jingles, and then I make like 10 of them, and then I've got my next set of piles and I make another 10, and now I'm gonna go through and just attach them. And I don't know if it is actually faster, but it feels faster. And sometimes that's pretty important. 1, 2, 3. Because if you can trick yourself into thinking that a project is going faster than what it actually is, it gets less daunting and it's a little bit more fun, and you're like, oh, I'm so close to being done now. And I don't know, it also, at least for me, lets me take a little bit of a brain break. And just kind of zone out and do what I'm doing. so now I'm adding on my last jangly bit, whatever. And I'm going to show you guys how I attach the ribbon to get this to be a completed piece. What did I do with my ribbon is the question. Okay. I was on. I had something I didn't want to lose. What would I do with it? There we go. Okay, so here we have, you can see, this is a 25-yard roll of ribbon that I got from Walmart for like $3. But it does the job. And since a lot of the times folks will accessorize this out to be whatever color they want it to be to match their outfit, I don't mind using an inexpensive ribbon. But I've also seen this hold up for years of use with an outfit. And I'm just getting an arm span, and then I double it over, so we have that much. And I'm going to do that twice. Arm span. Snip. I cut at an angle, that way you don't have to worry about the fibers fraying off. There's that. I'm going to set that off to the side. And now I really like using my 1/4 inch hole punch because it makes just a nice sized hole. Get it there pretty close to the tip, just right there. Hammer. And just punch a hole just like that on both ends. There we are. And now from here, I'm going to take the fold of the ribbon, feed the corner of it up through from the back, and pull through like that, then open up that loop and pull the remainder of the ribbon through. And I call it a lark's head knot. I've heard it called a hitch knot, just whatever you like, but that's whatever it's called, that's how it looks. And I really like that because it keeps it nice and even without having like a clunky knot there at the end. Pull it through. And one more time, we feed it up through the back. There we go. Pull through. And then pull just like that. And now we have a very nice jingly belt that looks like that. Very cool. So thanks everybody for joining me for this video. I hope that it was helpful to you. And if you have any questions, ideas, or comments, please leave them down below. But yeah, this is the finished product. Not bad for a pretty simplistic belly dance belt. Some nice jingling going on there. If you enjoy our free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please check us out on Patreon. There's links down in the video description below. And if you become a patron, like in the $1 up category, it automatically enters you into all of our giveaways across the board, as well as the VIP exclusive like patron giveaways for like the fairy houses and stuff that we do twice a month now. And it's like, that'll sign you up for my Facebook giveaways, my Instagram, like all sorts of stuff, like my seed giveaways here, without you having to do any additional liking or sharing or commenting or anything like that. If you pledge $5 or more, it puts your name in the hat 5 times for all those giveaways. So that's pretty exciting. But also, if you just want to show your support by watching and liking and commenting and sharing, there are a lot of giveaways that you can participate in as well. That way, you know, 'cause I appreciate all of y'all's support in any way that you're able to give it. So thank you. But yeah, I hope y'all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you around. Mwah. Happy crafting. Bye.